Captain Du-1 Park sat in his office aboard the Earth Defense Force flagship Guardian staring at the holographic message floating above his desk. The blue light from the projection cast strange shadows on his face as he read the warning for the 5th time. His coffee had gone cold, forgotten in the gravity of the moment. The message was clear and direct. Omega-12 system, strictly forbidden to all species. No exceptions. Below that warning was a new addition that made his heart skip a beat. Research Station Stellar Pioneer missing in Omega-12. All rescue attempts prohibited. Du-1 ran his fingers through his short black hair, a habit he'd developed during his 15 years of service. The Stellar Pioneer, that was the Jin's ship. His sister. The sister who had always been too smart, too curious for her own good. A soft chime announced someone at his door. "Enter," he called out, not taking his eyes off the message. Lieutenant Jia Kim walked in, her uniform crisp despite the late hour. She carried a datapad in her hands, and Du-1 could tell from her expression that she hadn't slept either. "Captain, I found something you need to see," she said, placing the pad on his desk. "It's about Omega-12. Du-1 switched off the hologram and picked up the pad. "Tell me." "The official records say it's just an empty system with strange energy readings," Jaya explained, leaning forward. "But I dug deeper, way deeper than I probably should have." She tapped the pad, bringing up a series of classified documents. "Look at these energy signatures. They're not natural." The screen showed wavelength patterns that pulsed in impossible ways. Du-1 might not have been a scientist like his sister, but 15 years in space had taught him enough to know that energy shouldn't behave like that. "There's more," Jaya continued. "I found references to something called the predecessors. They were an advanced race that vanished about 50,000 years ago. Every scrap of evidence suggests Omega-12 was their testing ground." Du-1 frowned. "Testing ground for what?" "Weapons, but not the kind we understand." Jaya pulled up another file. "The Galactic Council has records of 15 different species trying to explore Omega-12. Every single ship that entered the system disappeared. No debris, no distress calls, nothing. It's like they ceased to exist." The captain stood up and walked to the window. The vast emptiness of space stretched out before him, stars twinkling like distant promises. Somewhere out there was his sister, trapped in a system that had swallowed entire civilizations. "The Council's warning mentioned a research station," he said quietly. "Why would they allow anyone to go there if they knew about the disappearances?" Jaya's expression darkened. "They didn't allow it. The Stellar Pioneer's mission wasn't sanctioned. They went in secretly, probably to study whatever's causing the anomalies." "That sounds like something He-Jin would do," Du-1 muttered. His sister had always been drawn to the unknown, to the mysteries that others feared to explore. It was what made her brilliant, and what now might have cost her her life. A sudden alert blared through the ship's speakers. "Captain Park to the bridge. Priority message from Galactic Council." Du-1 exchanged glances with Jaya before they both hurried out of his office. The corridors of the Guardian were quiet at this hour, their footsteps echoing against the metal floors as they made their way to the bridge. The bridge crew stood at attention as they entered. On the main screen, a stern-faced alien diplomat from the Council waited. The Arxian's crystalline features caught the light, creating rainbow patterns across its face. "Captain Park," the diplomat began, its translated voice sounding artificial and cold. "We have detected unusual activity in your sector. Your ship's computer has accessed classified files regarding Omega-12. Jaya stiffened beside him, but Du-1 kept his face neutral. "Yes, Ambassador. We received the warning about the missing research vessel. As the nearest Earth Defense Force ship, it's our duty to gather all relevant information." "There will be no rescue mission, Captain," the ambassador stated firmly. "The loss of the Stellar Pioneer is unfortunate, But the quarantine of Omega-12 exists for a reason. That system has claimed thousands of lives across multiple civilizations. We will not risk more. Du-1 felt anger rising in his chest, but he kept his voice steady. Ambassador, with all due respect, those are Earth citizens in there. We can't just abandon them. You can, and you will. The ambassador's crystalline features hardened. This is not a request, Captain Park. It is an order. The Council has designated Omega-12 as a Class X restricted zone. Any attempt to enter the system will be considered an act of aggression against the Council itself. The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving the bridge in silence. Du-1 turned to his crew, seeing the same concern on their faces that he felt in his heart. Jaya, he said quietly, what else did you find in those classified files? She pulled up the data on her pad. The predecessors were working on something big in that system. The energy readings suggest they were experimenting with the fabric of reality itself. Some researchers think they found a way to manipulate space and time, and everything that enters the system vanishes, Du-1 mused. No debris, no signals. It's like they're being erased from existence. Not erased, came a new voice from the doorway. They turned to see Dr. Sun Mi Kang, the ship's quantum physicist, walking onto the bridge. She had obviously overheard their conversation. The ships aren't being destroyed, Captain. They're being displaced. Du-1 gestured for her to continue. Sun Mi pulled up her own research on the main screen, showing complex equations and energy patterns. I've been studying predecessor artifacts for years, she explained. Their technology operated on principles we're only beginning to understand. They didn't view space and time as separate things. To them, it was all one malleable medium. Like clay? Jaya asked. More like water, Sun Mi replied. They could make waves in reality itself. And based on these readings from Omega-12, I think they built something there that creates a permanent distortion. A place where the normal rules of space and time don't apply. Du-1 walked to the main viewport, looking out at the stars again. So the ships that vanish, they're probably still there. Sun Mi finished. Just not in any time or space we can easily reach. The implications hit Du-1 like a physical blow. If Sun Mi was right, then He Jin and her crew weren't dead. They were trapped, possibly conscious, in some kind of temporal maze. The thought of his sister drifting in that impossible space made his decision clear. He turned back to his crew. Jia, how long would it take us to reach Omega-12? At maximum speed. She checked her calculations. 3 days. Captain, Sun Mi interjected. You heard the Council. It's forbidden. Du-1 smiled grimly. The Council forbids it because no one has ever survived entering that system. But here's the thing about humans. We have a habit of surviving things we're not supposed to. He walked to his command chair and pressed the ship-wide communication button. Attention all crew. This is Captain Park speaking. I've just received orders from the Galactic Council to abandon the Stellar Pioneer and her crew to their fate in Omega-12. They believe that because 15 other species have failed to survive that system, we shouldn't even try. He paused, letting his words sink in. I disagree. Throughout history, humanity has faced impossible situations. We've survived ice ages with sticks and stones. We've crossed vast oceans in wooden boats. We've reached for the stars when they said we couldn't. And now they're telling us we can't survive Omega-12. The bridge crew straightened in their seats as he continued. I'm not ordering anyone to come with me. This mission will be strictly volunteer. We'll probably be court-martialed if we survive. But there are 47 people on that research ship, including my sister. I'm going after them. Anyone who wants to help, report to the main hangar in 2 hours. Anyone who doesn't, you'll be transferred to the nearest EDF station with my highest recommendations. The choice is yours. He switched off the comm and turned to his officers. Jia stepped forward first. You know I'm in, Captain. The quantum distortions will tear this ship apart, Sun Mi warned. Then she smiled. Unless someone who understands predecessor tech is there to prevent that. Count me in. One by one, the bridge crew voiced their support. Do-Won felt a surge of pride, but he kept his voice professional. All right, Jia, start making crew arrangements. Sunma, I want every scrap of data about predecessor tech you can find. We're going to need every advantage we can get. As his crew rushed to their tasks, Do-Won looked one more time at the stars. Somewhere out there, He-Jin was waiting. The council said no one survives Omega-12, but they'd never faced humans before. It was time to show the galaxy why humanity had survived every catastrophe their world had thrown at them. He touched the old photo in his pocket, him and He-Jin at her graduation, both smiling at the camera. Hold on, sis, he whispered. The rules say no one survives Omega-12, but we've never been good at following rules. The Guardian's engines hummed to life, and Captain Do-Won Park prepared to defy the oldest law in the galaxy. The rescue mission to Omega-12 had begun, and history was about to learn a valuable lesson about humans and impossible situations. They had 3 days to prepare, 3 days to figure out how to survive something that had killed every other species that tried. 3 days to prove that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their weapons, but their absolute refusal to accept the impossible. The adventure was just beginning, and the galaxy would never be the same. 2 hours after Captain Do-Won's announcement, the main hangar of the Guardian was packed. Instead of the skeleton crew he had expected, nearly 80% of the ship's personnel had shown up. Do-Won stood on a cargo container, looking at the faces of his crew. Some showed fear, others determination, but all of them were ready to help. I didn't expect this many of you, he said honestly. You all know the risks. You all know what the council said. With all respect, Captain, called out Chief Engineer Dong-Hyuk-yoon from the crowd, the council can go jump into a black hole. This brought laughter from the assembled crew. Dong-Hyuk stepped forward, his weathered face serious despite his joke. Those are our people out there. Humans don't leave their own behind. Commander Ta-Ho Lee, the ship's tactical officer, joined Dong-Hyuk. Besides, someone needs to be first to survive Omega-12. Might as well be us. Do-Won felt a lump in his throat, but kept his voice steady. All right then, let's get to work. We have 3 days to prepare for something that's killed every other species that's tried it. The crew split into teams, each with their own tasks. In the ship's laboratory, Dr. Sun-Mi Kang worked with her science team, studying the predecessor artifacts they had on board. The artifacts were simple things, small devices that seemed to bend light in impossible ways, metal that changed shape when you weren't looking at it directly. The predecessors didn't think like we do, Sun-Mi explained to Do-Won during a briefing. They saw reality as flexible. Their technology doesn't just use energy, it reshapes space itself. She held up one of the artifacts, a small cube that seemed to have more than 6 sides somehow. We need to understand how they did this if we want to survive Omega-12. In engineering, Dong-Hyuk and his team were making modifications to the Guardian's shields. Normal shields won't help us in there, he said, pointing to his diagrams. If space itself is twisted, we need shields that can twist with it, like a leaf riding on a stream. Do-Won spent hours with Tai-Ho going over tactical scenarios. We can't fight whatever's in there, Tai-Ho admitted. But maybe we don't have to. If we can understand it, adapt to it, that's what humans do best, right? We adapt. On the second day, Jia called Do-Won to the communications room. Captain, I found something in He-Jin's personal files, she said, showing him a video recording. He-Jin's face appeared on the screen, looking excited but nervous. Do-Won, if you're seeing this, something's gone wrong. He-Jin's recording began. We found something amazing in the Omega-12 data. The predecessors weren't just experimenting with weapons. They were trying to create safe zones in space, places where dangerous things could be contained without being destroyed. But something went wrong. The containment field started spreading. Do-1 watched as his sister explained her theories. Jin had always been the smarter one, seeing patterns others missed. The system isn't killing ships, she continued. It's trying to protect them, the same way it was designed to protect the galaxy from whatever the predecessors were afraid of. We're going in to try to understand it. If we succeed, we might learn how to control space itself. If we fail, she smiled sadly. Well, you always told me my curiosity would get me in trouble someday. The video ended, and Do-1 sat in silence for a moment. Send this to Sunmi, he finally said. Jin's theory might help us prepare. The third day was a rush of activity. Sunmi's team had modified their sensors based on the predecessor artifacts. Dong-hyuk had rebuilt the shield generators using principles no human engineer had ever tried before. Tai-ho had developed new protocols for moving through space that might not follow normal rules. It's not perfect, Sunmi warned during the final briefing. We're basically trying to understand technology that's 50,000 years ahead of us. It's like cavemen trying to understand a computer. Good thing we're so good at pushing buttons we don't understand, Dong-hyuk joked, but his eyes were serious. The shields will either work or they won't. We won't get a second chance to find out. Do-1 looked at his senior staff gathered around the briefing room table. Last chance to back out, he offered. Once we enter that system, we're probably going to see things that don't make sense. Things that shouldn't be possible. With respect, Captain, Tai-ho said, impossible is what humans do best. Ja pulled up the star chart showing their course to Omega-12. We'll reach the system boundary in 6 hours. The Council's probably figured out what we're planning by now. As if on cue, the ship's computer announced an incoming transmission. The Arxian ambassador's crystalline face appeared on the screen, looking even more stern than before. Captain Park, the ambassador said, multiple ships have reported your course heading. You are moving toward Omega-12 despite explicit warnings. Explain yourself. Do-1 stood straight, facing the screen. Ambassador, we're going to rescue our people. You can court-martial me later if you want. This is not about military discipline. The ambassador's voice rose. You are going to get everyone on your ship killed. The laws of physics themselves break down in that system. Nothing survives. You keep saying that. Do-1 replied calmly. Nothing survives. No one comes back. But here's what I think. Maybe the problem isn't that it's impossible. Maybe the problem is that everyone believes it's impossible. The ambassador's crystalline features shifted in what might have been frustration. Human arrogance will be your downfall. You cannot simply ignore the laws of the universe because you want to. Actually, Sunmi spoke up. Ignoring supposed universal laws is something humans are remarkably good at. We weren't supposed to be able to fly. We weren't supposed to be able to break the sound barrier. We weren't supposed to be able to split the atom. But we did all those things because we didn't accept that they were impossible. This is different, the ambassador insisted. You cannot understand what you are facing. You're right, Do-1 agreed. We don't understand it. But we're going to try anyway. Because that's what humans do. We see something we don't understand, and instead of running away, we try to figure it out. Sometimes we fail. Sometimes we die trying. But sometimes we succeed exactly because we didn't know it was impossible. He gestured, and Jaya cut the transmission. The briefing room was quiet for a moment before Dong-hyuk broke the silence. Well, the engineer said, that probably didn't help our chances of avoiding court-martial. The crew laughed, breaking the tension. Do-1 looked at each of them. Get to your stations. Whatever's waiting for us in there, we face it together. As the others filed out, Jaya stayed behind. Captain, she said quietly, I've been thinking about what Jin said in her message. About the system trying to protect things. What about it? Well, every species that went in there approached it as a threat. Something to be fought or overcome. What if that's why they failed? What if the system reacts to how you approach it? Do-One considered this. It was the kind of sideways thinking that humans excelled at. You might be onto something. Send that theory to all department heads. Maybe we need to stop thinking about surviving Omega-12 and start thinking about understanding it instead. The next few hours were a blur of preparations. The Guardian hummed with energy as new systems came online. Dong Huck's modified shields created strange patterns on the hull, like oil on water. Sun Mi's sensors picked up increasingly bizarre readings as they approached the system boundary. Finally, Do-One sat in his command chair, looking at the view screen. Ahead of them, the stars seemed to twist slightly, as if seen through curved glass. The border of Omega-12. All stations report ready, Jaya announced. Shield modifications holding steady. Dong Huck's voice came over the comm. Sensors active, though I'm not sure what they're going to show us in there, Sun Mi added. Do-One took a deep breath. Somewhere in that twisted space ahead, his sister and her crew were waiting. 47 humans trapped in what might be the most dangerous place in the galaxy. The Council said no one survives Omega-12, but they had never met humans quite like this crew. Take us in, he ordered. Nice and slow. Remember, we're not here to fight it. We're here to understand it. The Guardian moved forward, its hull gleaming with strange energies. They were about to either make history or join the long list of ships that had vanished in Omega-12. Either way, they were going to show the galaxy what humans could do. As they crossed the boundary, reality itself seemed to hold its breath. The adventure was about to truly begin. The moment the Guardian crossed into Omega-12, everything changed. The stars outside the viewscreen stretched and twisted like reflections in a funhouse mirror. Colors that shouldn't exist danced across the ship's hull. In engineering, every instrument started giving impossible readings. This is different, Dong Huck said from his station, his voice tight with tension. The shields are holding, but they're reporting that we're moving in 6 different directions at once. Do-One gripped his chair as reality rippled around them. Sun Mi, what are we seeing? Everything and nothing, the physicist replied, her eyes glued to her screens. Space isn't working right here. It's like, imagine a piece of paper. Normal space is flat, like the paper lying on a table. But here, someone's crumpling the paper while also trying to fold it into an origami crane. Through the view screen, they could see what looked like parts of other ships, but something was wrong with them. Some seemed frozen in time, their metal surfaces neither old nor new. Others appeared to be moving backwards, pieces of their hulls reassembling themselves from explosions that were unhappening. Captain, Jaya called out, her voice steady despite the strangeness around them. I'm picking up signals, hundreds of them, from all the ships that disappeared here. Can you understand any of them? She shook her head. There, time shifted. Some are playing backwards. Some are repeating the same second over and over. And some, she paused, some seem to be broadcasting from times that haven't happened yet. Do-One stood up, watching as a massive alien warship drifted past them. Its hull was both pristine and ancient at the same time, somehow managing to be new and thousands of years old in the same moment. Any sign of the stellar pioneer? He asked. Working on it, Jaya replied. The problem is, it might be here multiple times. I'm seeing ships that exist in several different time periods simultaneously. Taiho's voice came over the comm from the weapon control room. Captain, you need to see this, sending it to the main screen. The view screen changed to show what looked like a massive structure floating in the distance. It was geometric but impossible, a shape that seemed to have too many angles, too many sides. Parts of it seemed to fade in and out of existence. What is that? Do-One asked. I think, Sun Mi said slowly, that's what the predecessors built. The containment system He-Jin mentioned. It's bending reality around itself. As they watched, space itself seemed to fold near the structure. Do-One saw what happened to ships that got too close. They became trapped in loops of twisted spacetime, endlessly repeating the same moments or splitting into multiple versions of themselves. The whole system is a trap, Taiho realized, but not meant to kill. It's meant to hold things in stasis, perfect containment. Nothing can escape if it's trapped outside of normal time. Suddenly, the ship shuddered. Alarms blared as reality twisted harder around them. "We're being pulled in," Donghuk shouted. "The structure. It's trying to trap us like the others." "Everyone hold on," Do-Won ordered. "Sunme, what's happening to us?" The physicist's fingers flew over her console. "The containment field is trying to push us out of normal space-time. But something's different. The shields, they're not just protecting us. They're adapting." Do-Won watched as strange patterns of energy flowed across the ship's hull, matching the twists in space around them. Donghuk's modified shields were doing something unprecedented. "It's like," Sunme continued, excitement creeping into her voice. "It's like our shields are learning the rules of this place. They're bending with space instead of trying to resist it." "Captain," Jaya's voice cut through the chaos, "I found the stellar pioneer. But you need to see this." The screen split to show multiple images of the same ship, Hejin's ship. In one image it was just arriving in the system. In another, it was already half-trapped in a temporal loop. In a third, it was trying to escape, all existing at once. "How is this possible?" Do-Won asked. "Time isn't moving in one direction here," Sunmai explained. "The containment field splits things across multiple temporal states. It's why nothing can escape. You can't leave when you exist in several different times simultaneously." More alarms sounded as the Guardian was pulled closer to the structure. The impossible geometry of it seemed to hurt their eyes now, as if their brains weren't meant to process what they were seeing. "Sir," Taiho reported, "conventional weapons are useless here. They either age to dust before they hit anything or reverse back into the ship." Do-Won watched as another alien ship drifted past them, its crew frozen in a moment of panic that had lasted for perhaps thousands of years. "We need to think differently," he said. "Jaya, you were right before. We need to stop fighting it." He turned to Sunmai. "You said our shields are adapting to this place, learning its rules. Can we use that?" The physicist's eyes widened. "Maybe. The containment field works by splitting things across multiple time states. But our shields, they're somehow maintaining our temporal coherence, keeping us in one piece, in one time." "What about the crew of the Pioneer?" Do-Won asked. "If we could extend our shields." "It's not that simple," Sunmai interrupted. "They're split across multiple time states. Even if we could reach them, how do we know which version to save? Get it wrong, and we might pull only part of them back to normal space." The ship shuddered again as another temporal wave hit them. Do-Won watched the crew working at their stations, each facing impossible problems with determined focus. Humans, he realized, had a unique gift, the ability to face the impossible and simply try anyway. "Wait," he said suddenly. "Show me Hejin's message again." Jaya played the recording. They watched as Hejin explained her theory about the containment system trying to protect things. "It's not killing ships," her recorded voice said. "It's trying to protect them." "Sunme," Do-Won turned to the physicist. "You said human brains process time linearly, right? We can only experience it in one direction." "Yes, it's how we evolved. Our consciousness moves forward in time, even here where time isn't moving properly." "So what if that's our advantage? Every other species tried to fight this place, tried to impose their own rules on it. But what if we do what humans do best? Adapt." Understanding dawned on Sunmi's face. "The shields, they're already doing it. They're not fighting the temporal distortions, they're flowing with them. Like a leaf on a stream." Donghuk finished from engineering. "That's what I designed them to do." Do-Won smiled. "Exactly. We're not going to fight our way out of this. We're going to think our way out. Humans don't just break rules. We learn to work with them in new ways." He turned to his crew. Sun Mai, can you modify the shields to extend their effect? Create a bubble of stable space-time around us. Maybe, she said, but it would take massive power. Dong Hyuk, the engineer, was already working at his station. If we redirect power from weapons and non-essential systems, maybe. We've never tried anything like this. Story of our species, Do-Won replied. Jia, keep tracking the Pioneer. All versions of it. We're going to try something either brilliant or stupid. With humans, usually both, Taeho added with a grim smile. As the crew worked, the Guardian drifted closer to the massive structure. Around them, space continued to twist and fold, but now they were starting to see patterns in the chaos. The impossible was becoming understandable. Ready when you are, Sun Mai reported. But Captain, this might not work. We might end up like all the others. Do-Won looked at the frozen ships around them, monuments to all those who had tried and failed to survive Omega-12. But humans had always survived by doing what others thought impossible. Send power to the shields, he ordered. Let's show the galaxy why humans don't follow the rules. We make new ones instead. The Guardian's hull began to glow with strange energy as they prepared to attempt something no species had ever tried before, not surviving Omega-12, but understanding it. The real test was about to begin. The Guardian's hull glowed with impossible colors as Sun Mai's modified shields created a bubble of stable space-time around the ship. Inside this bubble, the crew could think clearly, no longer affected by the temporal chaos outside. Shield bubble is holding, Dong Hyuk reported from engineering. Power levels at maximum, but stable. Do-Won watched as the massive predecessor structure loomed before them. From within their bubble of normal space, they could see it more clearly now. The impossible geometry began to make a strange kind of sense. It's beautiful, Sun Mai whispered, looking at her readings. The predecessors didn't just build a containment system. They built a way to step outside of time itself. Great, Taeho said dryly. Now how do we use that to save the Pioneer? Jaya's voice cut through their discussion. Captain, I'm getting readings from inside our shield bubble. The stable space-time. It's affecting the temporal signals. I can track the Pioneer now. Do-Won moved to her station. Show me. On her screen, the multiple time-shifted versions of the Pioneer began to align. Like tuning an old radio, the various signals started to come together into one clear image. There, Jaya pointed. The Pioneer is trapped in a temporal eddy about 2 kilometers from here. It's experiencing the same 5 minutes over and over again. Can we reach them with our shield bubble? Do-Won asked. Sun Mai checked her calculations. Maybe. But Captain, there's something else you need to see. She brought up new readings on the main screen. Look at our brainwave patterns. The screen showed waves of neural activity from the crew. But there was something unusual about them. Human consciousness, Sun Mai explained. Excitement in her voice. It's different here. While everything else is being split across multiple time states, our minds are staying synchronized. We're maintaining temporal coherence naturally. English, please, Taeho requested. She means our brains are keeping us anchored in one time stream. Jaya translated. It's why we can think clearly enough to understand this place, while other species got lost in the temporal chaos. Do-Won looked at the Pioneer's signal again. Can we use that? Find a way to help Jin and her crew synchronize with our time stream. Actually, Sun Mai's fingers flew over her console. Yes, if we can extend our shield bubble to reach their ship, our temporal coherence might help pull them back into normal space-time. Suddenly, the ship shuddered. Outside their bubble, space twisted violently. The structure. Dong Hyuk called out. It's reacting to us. Power levels spiking. Do-Won watched as new energy patterns emerged from the ancient device. But something was different now. The patterns weren't random. They were responding to their presence. It's not attacking us, Sun Mai realized. It's adapting to us, just like we're adapting to it. The containment system is learning. Can we use that? Do-1 asked. Find a way to communicate with it. Sun Mi's eyes lit up. Maybe we already are. Our shield bubble, our brainwaves. We're not just surviving in this space. We're showing it a new way to exist within it. Do-1 made his decision. Take us closer to the Pioneer. Dong-hyuk, pour everything you've got into the shields. Jia, try to establish communication. Sun Mi, monitor that structure. I want to know the moment anything changes. The Guardian moved carefully through the twisted space. Around them, they could see other ships still frozen in their temporal prisons. But now they understood. These ships weren't dead. They were waiting for someone to understand this place well enough to free them. As they approached the Pioneer, He-Jin's ship became clearer. Through the view screen, they could see the research vessel caught in its time loop, its hull flickering as it repeated the same moments over and over. Shield bubble extending. Sun Mi reported. Contact in 10 seconds. Everyone brace. Do-1 ordered. This could get. The moment their shield bubble touched the Pioneer, reality itself seemed to hiccup. Colors inverted, then returned to normal. Every screen on the bridge flickered. Shield holding. Dong-hyuk shouted. Pioneer is being drawn into our bubble. They watched as He-Jin's ship slowly synchronized with their time stream. The flickering stopped. The temporal loop broke. We have contact, Jia announced. Communication channels opening. He-Jin's face appeared on the screen. She looked exhausted but alive. Do-1. Is that really you? It's me, sis, he smiled. We came to get you out. But that's impossible, she said. The containment field. Yeah, about that. Do-1 interrupted. We've figured a few things out. Your theory was right. This place isn't meant to destroy. It's meant to protect. And now we know why humans can survive here. Before he could explain further, new alarms sounded. The predecessor structure was pulsing with energy. Multiple temporal waves incoming. Tahoe warned. But Sun Mi was laughing. No, look, the waves. They're synchronizing with our shield frequency. The structure isn't fighting us anymore. It's learning from us. On the main screen, they watched in awe as the impossible geometry of the structure began to shift. The chaos of twisted spacetime started to organize itself into new patterns. It's beautiful, He-Jin whispered over the comm. The containment system. It was waiting for this, waiting for a species that could show it a new way. Do-1 understood now. The predecessors had built this place to contain threats, but they had also built it to learn, to evolve. It had trapped so many ships because it was waiting for someone who could teach it something new. All ships in range are being affected, Jia reported. The temporal distortions, they're stabilizing. One by one, the frozen ships around them began to sync with their time stream. Vessels that had been trapped for centuries started to move again. The impossible space of Omega-12 was transforming into something new, a place where time flowed strangely, but predictably. Send a message to the Council, Do-1 ordered. Tell them humans have survived Omega-12. And we've done more than that. We've changed it. Hours later, the Guardian and the Pioneer led a convoy of rescued ships out of Omega-12. The massive structure had settled into a new configuration, still bending reality but no longer trapping ships in temporal chaos. The Arxian ambassador's face appeared on their screen as they crossed back into normal space. The crystalline features showed what might have been shock. This is unprecedented, the ambassador said. You didn't just survive. You solved it. You changed the very nature of Omega-12. That's what humans do, Do-1 replied simply. We don't just break rules. We understand why they exist, and then we find ways to make them better. He-Jin's voice came over the comm. The containment system wasn't a weapon, Ambassador. It was the ultimate safety device, but it needed to learn how to work with conscious beings, not just trap them. Human consciousness, Our ability to maintain temporal coherence while adapting to new situations showed it a better way. The ambassador was quiet for a moment. The council will need to reconsider many things. Perhaps we have underestimated humanity's potential. After the ambassador signed off, Du-Wan looked at his crew. They were tired, but proud. They had done what 15 other species had failed to do. Not because they were stronger or smarter, but because they had approached the impossible with open minds. So, Tae-ho asked with a grin, "Are we still going to be court-martialed?" "Probably," Du-Wan laughed. "But I think we can live with that." The Guardian turned toward home, its hull still shimming with traces of impossible energy. Behind them, Omega-12 pulsed with new life, no longer a trap, but a testament to humanity's greatest strength, the ability to face the impossible and find a way to make it possible. As they headed home, Du-Wan thought about what they had achieved. Humans had survived Omega-12 not by being exceptional, but by being adaptable. Not by fighting the rules, but by understanding them and finding new ways to work with them. The galaxy would never be the same. And that, he realized, was exactly what humans did best. They changed things, not by force, but by showing the universe new possibilities it had never considered before. "Set course for Earth," he ordered. "We have one hell of a story to tell." And in the vastness of space, Omega-12 continued to pulse with its new patterns, forever changed by the species that had taught it how to learn instead of just how to contain. The rules said no one survives Omega-12, but humans had done more than survive. They had helped it evolve.